I go to them. I mean, almost everyone who goes to a doctor. It's like, well, if you have this issue, if you've been struggling, go check it out. Maybe it's genetic. Maybe the path is totally different. Well, I think the main point I got from the talent test was interesting because I realized that over time, I actually worked more on my weaknesses than my strengths. And I was like, if I spent so much time on areas that genetically weren't my strong points, why not spend time on areas where, genetically, I could actually expand them as talents? How cool would it be to bring those up, even if slowly, to the level of the things I hadn't invested in? For example, one interesting part was that I always thought my memory was weak, but then it turned out my visual memory is actually strong. That's something I used a lot in my daily life. I even remember my phone number by its shape. It's easier for me than memorizing the actual digits. And I realized how funny, maybe I can use this to replace other forms of remembering. Another part was when they said I have ADHD. They said I've had ADHD since I was a kid, and all these were signs of ADHD. That was funny to me, and it was interesting how I managed to deal with it. What was cool was that I used other talents I had alongside it. That was interesting for me. And well, what you say, like it's really hard to figure out if something is environmental or genetic. That's different for me. In my opinion, the form I filled out showed that these things are genetic. And well, the way you deal with something genetic is really different from something environmental. That's why, for me, it was like a guiding light, but I wish it had happened sooner. Like, if the technology had been around back then, maybe I would have used GPT as my strategist for my genetic map. For example, I said, okay, these are my talents, these are the issues I've faced, and these are the other strengths I've gained. Now, what should I do with all of this together? It becomes much more accurate. And which one should I strengthen? The first thing was, let's use these skills to strengthen them. Let's do these exercises and activities, and gradually build a complete portfolio for you. And it was interesting. For example, one of the things I did afterward was start learning a language. I started learning French so that those aspects that are not innate almost. Music came to me very early on, and I didn't know. Well, before I thought it was normal, but then I realized forgetting isn't normal. Then I went to the doctor, and it took a while to get treated. And even now, I'm still dealing with it, and it doesn't get better. I've pretty much always had both acid reflux and stomach ulcers, and it was funny to find out it's in my genetics. You have to write it down from the start that you'll never get rid of it. Now that it's happened, it's not so easy to treat for you either. So now, for example, I've been in treatment for about 3 or 4 years, and that was also something where I thought, since I'm usually not okay with taking pills, I'd probably quit soon. But then I thought, let's see if it actually helps with a weakness. It's not meant to cure it. With this mindset, I accepted this long-term treatment. It takes time, and sometimes you forget about it. But the interesting part was that I realized most of it was Iranian. I used to think maybe there was a little bit from another side, maybe a bit European, a bit Iranian, and I wanted it to be more international, you know? I wanted to have a little bit from everywhere, but it turned out to be really limited, really pure, and honestly, I didn't like that. I wanted to be a citizen of the world. It's a really professional team. even during the consultation period and when getting the test results. They provided some really great websites and didn't just leave you hanging with a bare result. They really helped a lot along the way, especially with the supplements they recommend alongside the test results. Overall, I feel like I got to know a really professional team. As they say, they're the real deal. Almost every time someone goes to a doctor, it's like, well, if you have this issue, go check it out. Maybe it's genetic and the path is totally different. Plus, if someone is seeing a therapist or following their own therapy path, I think this is a really good tool to have in hand, at least up to this point. And honestly, to almost everyone I've met so far, who has had a kid, I've said that in my opinion. This is like a catalog that should have actually been given to parents before having a child. I mean, if there was a complete company for having kids, there should have been a catalog like this that came with the child. Now that it doesn't exist, you have to pay for it separately and get the catalog yourself. You get to know your child much better, and you can prevent a lot of harm. But for those of you who are older and now want to buy this, personally speaking, in my opinion, it's an extra understanding that usually takes time. The cost, compared to the time needed to gain this understanding, is reasonable. It should be purchased. And in a way, it's a kind of self discovery that's become very scientific. If we want to add the collective aspect to it later, it'll get even more fun and interesting. But for now, even just this much is really